Last year, Samsung decided to create another new market niche, outing the first handset equipped with a 10x optical zoom, the aptly named Galaxy S4 Zoom. It had a 60-megapixel sensor, protruding lens, and a bulky body, making it more of a camera with phone functions you'd take on vacation rather than something suitable for the everyday grind. This year, Samsung doubled down on the new market niche it created by introducing the Galaxy K Zoom, whose naming scheme breaks away from riding on the flagship's coattails this time. The second edition is better equipped in the specs department, both on the phone and on the camera side, as it now sports a 20-megapixel sensor. Does the K Zoom stand a better chance of becoming something else than a niche device for camera enthusiasts? Let's share some initial impressions based on this pre-production unit of the handset. The K Zoom is taller, wider, and slightly thicker handset than the S4 Zoom, making it less suitable to operate with one hand than its predecessor. The huge lens area on the back sticks out a bit and gets in the way while operating the phone, but one can quickly get used to that. Due to the protruding lens part, the phone also looks funky when placed on a table, with the upper part propped by the camera and the phone rocking left to right when you tap on the screen. At 7 ounces of weight, you always notice that the K Zoom is in your pocket or your hand, but still the heft and dimensions are manageable considering that you can carry a 10x optical zoom device with you at all times. The thing weighs as much as some of those 6 inches that are flooding the market, so if you're willing to put up with that lack of comfort, you won't have trouble gobbling up the K Zoom too. Samsung has outfitted the camera phone with its signature physical home key below the display, while the volume rocker, lock key, and the camera shutter on the right hand side. The left is occupied solely by the microSD slot, which lets you extend the internal storage with up to 64GB cards. Samsung has opted for the perforated look that first appeared with the S5, but this one here is simply dimples made in hard plastic. The dimpled battery cover is easily removable, revealing a replaceable unit underneath it. This might come in handy for those photogs that the K Zoom is aimed at, since they can carry a spare juicer or two with them at all times when shooting in the boondocks. Samsung opted for a larger display diagonal compared to the 4.3-inch S4 Zoom. The K Zoom here sports a 4.8-inch 720 by 1280 pixel Super AMOLED display with the very good 306 ppi pixel density. That's perfectly fine for most scenarios, including reading smaller text. Super AMOLEDs usually sport tacky oversaturated colors, and the K Zoom is not an exception here too. We'll leave our opinion and measurements for our review of a final retail unit though. There aren't any surprises in Samsung's latest TouchWiz interface layered on top of Android 4.4 KitKat in the K Zoom. It shapes up to be the same you'd find on the Galaxy S5 for instance, as we find the typical Samsung app set and stock widgets like the new Toolbox floating app set, the ultra power saving mode, or the magazine news aggregator. Following the recent trends, most design elements such as the icons or the built-in widgets now appear flat and more simplistic looking, with less gradient effects and more solid colors. The traditionally rich TouchWiz functionality is here as well. You can easily access notifications, connectivity switches, and a brightness slider from the pull-down status bar. There are a few new apps that Samsung seems to have graced the K Zoom with. ProSuggest is full of downloadable camera extensions like shooting modes, color effects, and artwork. Samsung has also partnered with Vine for a special app edition of its short video maker. In addition, the S Studio application lets you edit and trim images and video, then put them together as a slideshow or a lively collage of sorts. Still more of those might make it to the retail version, or some might be removed altogether. Powered by Samsung's new mid-range Exynos 5 Hexa processor, the Galaxy K Zoom interface seems very fluid. Even in our pre-production unit, this chip sports two 1.7 GHz Cortex-A15 cores and 4 1.3 GHz low-power Cortex-A7s for the mundane tasks, and they're paired with an ARM Mali T624 GPU. The processor and graphics kit might not beat down the newest Snapdragons in a benchmarking fight, but we'd have to say they make the K Zoom household run very smooth and without quarrels. Samsung placed the adequate 2GB of RAM in the handset, which means you won't find it struggling for memory when many apps are running at once. There are 8GB of internal memory in the K Zoom, of which only 5 are user available, and a microSD slot in the left side for up to 64GB of storage expansion. We've got no complaints about Samsung's stock TouchWiz browser, as the K Zoom renders the pages very quickly, and panning around as well as zooming or scrolling are fast and without major interruptions. The K Zoom can offer 4G LTE radio or 42 megabits per second HSP plus download speeds, depending on the region and the carrier it is offered at. The other wireless options are a standard set: Wi-Fi, Wi-Fi Direct, Bluetooth 4.0, assisted GPS, DONA, and NFC. Apart from the regular TouchWiz gallery, which offers split-screen view, Samsung also has led the so-called S Studio, which adds extra editing options for pictures and videos, including the ability to make artsy collages and slideshows on the phone itself. And Samsung has also partnered with Vine for a tailored app that has the zoom buttons directly on the screen, for example. The music player interface with its blocky elements is familiar from the S5. The UI might be unimpressive, but it offers all the basics like song categorization as well as an abundance of equalizer presets and sound modes to choose from. We also get a stock video player that Samsung cites to run most popular formats and up to 1080p resolution at that. Its interface and options leave something to be desired, yet you can always grab a better one from the Play Store. The 20 megapixel camera in the Galaxy K Zoom has a powerful spec sheet to back it up. The sensor is very large, in fact the largest in the Android universe, the same one as on the Xperia Z1 or Z2. It features 10x optical zoom, xenon flash and image stabilization. Only the aperture is subpar, with non-zoom it is f3.1, reaching 6.3 when zoomed in. Zooming is done with a volume rocker or an on-screen slider, while the instant camera mode lets you enter directly the camera up from a lock screen by pressing the shutter key and volume rocker at the same time. There's an abundance of shooting modes and color effects that goes way beyond the typical smartphone camera options, even on feature-rich ones. For tricky dynamic range scenarios, the K-Zoom has a unique feature, allowing you to place the focus on the subject you want, but move the exposure measurements to be taken from another part of the scene. The Galaxy K-Zoom doesn't record 4K video, which is a bummer considering that a lot of flagship handsets now do, but it's not a deal breaker. The phone, however, can record 1080p video with 60 frames per second in addition to the usual 30. Having both a 10x optical zoom lens and optical image stabilization makes the K-Zoom one of the best phones for recording video in theory, as you can steadily zoom into crazy detail from afar without sacrificing quality. There's a silent zoom option too, where the lens motor noise gets weeded out if you zoom in while recording. The main cause for concern with a phone that carries 10x optical zoom lens is its bulky demeanor, and unfortunately the Galaxy K Zoom is not an exception. With that caveat aside, knowing that you have 10x optical zoom in your pocket at all times is a very strong incentive for photo enthusiasts to get the handsets, as no amount of lossless zoom can near the tricks you can do with Samsung's camera phone here. If you have no need for this optical zoom, the difference in picture quality with the current Android flagships might not turn out to be as stark as needed to warrant the purchase of the K-Zoom. This fact, together with the phone's bulk, make it more of a niche device, suitable for photogs or for a second phone you would use when on vacation or a road trip, rather than a daily driver. This was Daniel from PhoneArena with a video preview of the Samsung Galaxy K-Zoom. For more information about this and other handsets, you can visit us at phonearena.com.